Hi everyone, hello from Singapore. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's event. My name is Jody from SGInnovate and we're very happy to bring the next installment of our Future of Food series with the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore, as well as the Netherlands Innovation Network. For those of you who may be more new to us here at SGInnovate, we believe that deep technology can be used to solve many problems that we're facing today. Examples of our area of deep tech focus are that in the fields of artificial intelligence, quantum mechanics, autonomous vehicles, biotech, as well as food and agri-tech. Part of our initiatives to strengthen the deep tech ecosystem and generate conversation and knowledge sharing is through community events such as the one that we're having today. We strongly believe in the power of science and technology to benefit humanity, and today's Future of Food topic will focus on a global problem of effectively tackling food waste and moving towards a circular economy. Our event will start off with two opening presentations by Dr. Wei-Shan Chen, as well as Professor William Chen, followed by a panel discussion and a Q&A session. Before moving on to the opening presentations, I'll now like to pass the time over to Barbara from the Netherlands Innovation Network for a few words. Barbara, please.
Thank you, Jody. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Barbara Wiewel and I work at the Innovation Department at the Netherlands Embassy here in Singapore. As you can see from my background, we stimulate bilateral cooperation between Singapore and Dutch companies, research institutes and government. And we focus on global challenges in the field of, for example, circular economy, climate adaptation, and smart mobility. And on key enabling technologies such as AI, 5G, and cybersecurity. And one of the ways that we do this is by organizing missions and events such as like this, but also by identifying funding opportunities. And an example of this is the Eureka Global Stars Call, which is now open. If you have attended previous webinars in this series, you have heard this before, but I do want to highlight it. Global Stars is supports international R&D collaboration and specifically industry-led projects in the field of agri-food and circular economy. So that is very suiting for today's topic. We will include some information on this in the follow-up email as well. Then I would just like to thank all our speakers of today, William, Momo, Thomas and Rainer, our moderator Armin, and our great partners and co-organizers, Jody and Tuan from SGInnovate. And I will hope you will enjoy this session that we have prepared for you today. And know that you can always contact us for any questions regarding research and innovation. Then I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Wei-Shan Chen. He's an assistant professor working in the environmental technology group of Wageningen University and Research. His research focuses on how to redesign urban sanitary infrastructure to accommodate novel research recovery technologies, aiming to promote a circular economy in cities. I see that you have already started your slide, so Momo, over to you.
Thank you, Barbara, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. Good morning from Netherlands, and then also good afternoon in Singapore. As you can see, I'm now in Wageningen, so this is how our campus look like. But on the slides, you can see I also have a part-time position in Amsterdam to help changing the city to accommodate the circular economy. And today I want to share with you more on the food waste side what we are doing or what we are trying to experiment. Yeah, so by food waste, then I mean those low-grade mixed food waste from supermarket, from restaurant and canteen, and from household or high-rise buildings in the urbanized area. And this is a little bit different from the processing or post-harvest food waste, where they have a bit higher in purity. And in this low-grade mixed urbanized food waste, then they have a bit more variety and they are more mixed. And we can take a look at the composition of this food waste. So you see different things like noodles, like lemon, orange peels, etc. And they have a nature that is really highly mixed and heterogeneous. And normally they have very high water, but also they have a lot of big particles. So you sometimes you also see the whole chicken leg or the whole orange or lemon in the organic waste in the urbanized area. and this creates a difficult situation for the treatment. Another thing is also a lot of these materials, they are very highly reactive. So for example, if you have noodles or cooked rice, then they ferment easily within a few hours or 1 or 2 days. Then this produces some odors. And this does make some smell in your house or outside your house in the public domain. So this is also an issue associated with this low-grade mixed urban food waste. And if we look at the distribution of all these easily reactive organic materials, then half of them are in a solid form, which take a long time to hydrolyze, but also half of them are actually dissolved in the water or in the liquid phase of this waste. So which makes the technology, the treatment technology difficult, because some technology are designed more for the liquid phase, but some more for the solid. And if you have such half-half mixture, then it's very difficult. And so, for example, nowadays in Netherlands, then normally they first use anaerobic digestion, which is more for liquid, and then later on use compost, which is more for solid. So you have you need a combination of these. And then also, if you look into all the organic materials, then there are more than 30% that are really difficult for microbial degradation. So bacteria or fungi, they cannot degrade this within short time. So this is quite a challenge for the current system. And also as a result, then we don't get much value or resources from this stream. And also when you have a really urbanized area, when it's really crowded, then you need also a space for storage. And this costs a lot of money, because in a city center, land is very valuable. And also the mobility in the city center is also very important. In this case, all the collection system of this food waste will impact a lot. And then also when we see the climate change that is making more extreme weather, so the summer getting hotter and drier, then you have also quicker fermentation or bioreactions in the city, and this creates some hygiene issues. And if we look at the current valorization chain of the food waste, in, for example, in Amsterdam, then we have the generation of about half kilo food waste per person per day. This number may vary in different regions, but normally it's between 300 gram to 500 gram. And it's mostly first stored in an indoor container for a day or two. And then it will create some smell, and very often also some materials that are difficult to separate from, for example, plastic packaging, then they end up in the residual waste. Assume if you have a separation scheme with containing organic waste and also residual waste. And then sometimes there is also public bins that you can put as a collection method, but then normally this take a few days. So in Netherlands, for example, in many cities, they collect only once 2 weeks, and this creates a lot of odor, and there is no stabilization. For example, it's not cooling down, or they don't really add some stabilizers, so you create a lot of smell in the public domain, and this attracts rats, mosquitoes, flies, etc. And then also then the transportation comes, then they have to transport everything, including water and already reacted carbon materials, to one destination and use end-of-pipe treatments. And in our view, this is not really beneficial from a circular point of view. So we are now in Amsterdam together. So the city of Amsterdam initiated a new initiative to redesign the whole value chain of the food waste. And this is what we are proposing at this moment. We are going to experiment this soon. So we will start with generation, but the collection we change to kitchen grinder, that we immediately grind it into small particles, and then take it away from a house, so it doesn't stay in the house, doesn't create trouble for you. And we could design also a separation on site. So for example, via centrifuge, we can separate solid, liquid, and fat. And by this, then we can apply different technologies. So for example, for the solid side, we can grow insect. For liquid side, we can use bacteria to stabilize or produce, for example, methane as an energy carrier. And then we, instead of collection, then instead of transportation, we will use distribution to different users to valorize them. So this is the whole value chain we are now building in Amsterdam, and several with also other Dutch municipalities. So I would like to end my presentation here. So this is an initiative we are doing, and I hope you would share this vision. And I'm happy to answer any questions or have you on board for this. Thank you. That's my presentation. And now I would give the floor to Professor William Chen.
Oops. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Chen. I'm from Singapore's Nanyang Technological University. I'm helping the university to coordinate the research and development effort in the area of food science and technology. As you may know, Singapore is a small island country. We have many challenges, including water security and food security. Surprisingly, if you look at the food security index, we are ranked top in the world. But if you look at the assessment criteria for this high ranking, so it actually covers three key criteria, that is affordability, availability, quality, and safety. For those who have been to Singapore or are living in Singapore, we know that food is largely available, very much affordable, and quite safe. But if we look at the changes in the world in terms of climate change, global warming, and the fact that Singapore import more than 90% of the food for local consumption, so there's an underlying risk. This is typically demonstrated in the recent ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, through which we see that the collapse of global supply chain, including food supply. So there is a very strong need for Singapore to achieve a certain level of self-reliance in the food production. So recently, Singapore government has pushed out this a new vision, that is 30 by 30. But the 30 by 30 meaning that 30% of nutrition requirement from local production. So the key word here is nutrition requirement, not the 30% of the amount of food produced in Singapore. So if we look at the challenges facing the Singapore food security, we should see beyond the obvious, right? First, we have very little land for farming. As a result of the push for industrialization and urbanization, at the present time, we only have less than 1% of land for farming. At the same time, for those who are living in Singapore, you know that the food is so much abundant that we don't really take food security as a very serious issue, and we generate a lot of food waste. The number shows that we have around 800,000 tons of food waste generated in Singapore. Surprisingly, the plastic waste generated is reach the same amount. So if we do not address food waste issue, then over time we will not have a good life, because we have to keep on importing food into Singapore. Well, we are not paying attention to the proper utilization of food. And then the last critical area will be the aging population, as this is a very high-paced country. So the population is fast aging. So to address this, to contribute to the government's push in terms of enhancing food security, my university has pushed out this vision in developing food science and technology. So we first started our partnership with the world famous Wageningen University and research, where Dr. Chen was speaking from. over the years, we established partnership about 5 years ago. Over the years, we also have developed innovations of relevant to Singapore food industry. As you may know, if you go to Netherlands, everybody is 2 feet taller than me, that because of the difference in diet and nutrition. So here is, so when we develop innovations, it's important to bear in mind that it has to have some local relevance. I will not go into the details of the bottom panels. Basically, we have expanded the education beyond the university level. We offer workshops. We train the students from very young age, secondary school, junior college. And then we also expand our collaboration with Wageningen University Research into other areas than just food processing. In terms of research, our in-house capabilities have built a strong foundation for food processing and food circular economy. And we also work with government agencies and industries to sort of translate our innovation into commercial product. So I just give you a snapshot of a summary of what we have done so far. So we have using very simple technology. Fermentation is one, and green extraction is another one, to create this circular economy model to enhance our Singapore food security. As a sort of complement to Dr. Chen's excellent speech, we focused on side stream from food processing industry that may include soybean residue, burro spangly, and cooking waste cooking oil. So through this fermentation, we actually recover nutrients from these side streams, and these can be used for various purposes, like reconnect back to the food chain. And on the top right corner, what you see is another surprising application for even no food application. That is our antimicrobial compound from these side streams have been utilized by a local company in the design and production of antimicrobial reusable masks. This is in the containment of a COVID-19 spread. Our innovation has achieved to a stage that the industry have set up joint lab. At the bottom right corner, you see the opening of F&N, a local company, F&N and NTU joint lab, opened by Minister of Education when it comes standing next to the plant. To close the loop, the circular economy, because fermentation would not achieve the total removal of side streams, so we also develop environmental sustainability aspect by converting the remaining residue after fermentation into packaging materials. So in doing so, you see the really a circular economy and zero waste food processing. In terms of this is an example of from our innovations. So in addition to sort of recover nutrient from the side stream, and this is an example of food packaging from food for food using a prawn shell. You can see that this is also illustration of our platform technology. In this case, fermentation can be used to recover nutrient from the soybean residue, but in this case, it removed the minerals and protein from the prawn shells, so to enrich chitin and chitosan, and then these chitin and chitosan from the prawn shell actually can be converted into biodegradable and antimicrobial packaging materials. So this project has recently been featured in the Temasek Foundation's Livability Challenge. So we will move into the finals, and we won 2 prizes, and also we were voted the most popular innovation in the grand final. So this is an illustration that we have developed innovations. We partner with industry through this joint lab, and also now we partner with a startup to move the innovation from the lab to the market. So in summary, the NTU FST program, starting with the education partnership with Wageningen University Research, we have moved on, expanded into in-house research of innovation of relevance to local food industry. And we have community outreach to educate the young kids so that we have a pool of talent for the future of Singapore food industry. Our innovation has also attracted industry interest in investment, so much so that we have many partnerships with food industry. F&N Joint Lab is one example. We also collaborate with government agencies, Singapore Food Agencies and A-Star, so to work together under the framework of a Singapore food story to move together for this towards this 30 by 30 vision by Singapore government. This is our common goal, is that to work together to enhance Singapore food security. Thank you for your attention.
So I think we can now move on to the panel discussion. Harmon, please.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I think we have had a chance to listen to exciting presentations that set the scene for the panel discussion. I'm very delighted to moderate this panel discussion. And just a few words before we start. We pay a lot of attention to the issue of food security, food system resilience, productivity and sustainability of farming, and innovative production techniques. However, we do not spend adequate time and resources to work on reducing inefficiencies over the entire value chain, including managing food waste and loss. One of the targets set in Sustainable Development Goal 12 is to halve per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer levels, and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. To fully embrace the issue of food loss and waste, let's think about 821 million people, more than 1 in 9 who do not get enough to eat. And therefore, if we can better manage loss and waste and improve supply chains, we would literally ensure that everyone has some basic nutrition and no one left behind. Today, we're going to speak about the issues and solutions, focusing on food waste. During our panel discussion webinar format, we will explore the issue and speak about role of society, businesses, government, and academia. Let me thank again to SGInnovate and High Commission of Kingdom of Netherlands for initiating this dialogue. For all attendants of the webinar, you can ask your questions in Q&A section, and we will carefully screen and ask them to our speakers in the end. Without further ado, let's start by introducing our distinguished panelists to explore the issues and share their views and experience in the field. We have Rainer Lowy, co-founder and CEO of Lumetics, Thomas Lutikold, entrepreneur, Waste from Waste Watcher, of course, Dr. Wei Shan Chen, and Professor William Chan that were introduced by my colleagues. And let me start with Rainer. I want to start with citing your website. We wanted to create a tool that could help the whole industry to become actor of change. How does Lumetics drive this change, and what are some of the milestones you aim to?
Thanks for that question. Firstly, I just want to say that, in my opinion, food waste is one of the most overlooked environmental problems. Taking into consideration all the other environmental problems in the world, I feel that so little attention and effort has been directed to tackling the food waste problem, and that's one of the reasons why I started my company. Zooming in specifically on the solution that we've built, I've also realized that there's been a lot of work around the redistribution of surplus food and channeling a food that's still good for consumption to people who need it. I also noticed that there has been a lot of work done around recycling of food waste, turning food waste into compost or turning food waste into grey water for easier discharge. But there is almost little to no work being done at the prevention space. And that's where my company Lumetics plays in. we empower chefs with a digital tool, a tracking system, to help them better understand their food waste situation in their kitchen, because we are of the belief that when you begin to measure what you're throwing away, that's the first step to actually reducing food waste. And so in terms of goals and milestones, we hope to continue our efforts in helping kitchens globally transition to a more sustainable phase of operations where they can run the kitchens efficiently and sustainably. And so we hope to help kitchens save 50,000 tons by 2030 with our solution. Aman, I believe you're muted.
Oh, I apologize for that. Thank you for the very short and comprehensive response, Rainer. My next question would go to Thomas. The Waste Watcher provides tools to measure food waste, forecast sales, and ultimately reduce waste. What are the results so far? And what are the major challenges you're facing? And finally, what is your business model? Is it just a subscription-based services?
Hi, Armin. Hi, everybody. I saw some people from a lot of countries already in the chat. Really awesome. You asked me 3 questions. Let me start off with the last one. What we offer to our clients is more or less subscription-based services. And for some locations like hotels and congress centra, we offer project-based services, consultancy. And in general, the results we target with all sorts of clients is a reduction of 20% of food waste. So that's quite awesome, if I may say that. And the main challenges we see, well, it's really tough because we help chefs to prevent food waste. But the fact is that they always have to do something different to reduce food waste. So our biggest challenge is to influence more or less 100, maybe 200 chefs every day to do things differently. So it's a behavioral problem of professionals in the professional scene. So targeting theory, insights to practical, a really physical branch of sector, to get it to the right person and that they are going to change. That's our biggest challenge every day. In line of this challenge, we discuss a lot with chefs and we ask, why do you have so much food waste? And they always say, well, I don't know how much visitors I'm going to get today. I don't know what they're going to sell. And because I don't know that, I'm making more than I need just to be sure that I have enough. And we really want to help those chefs by forecasting the amount of visitors and the amount of sales. And we are busy with the formula with it. And the first gen algorithm showed 60 to 70% success on forecasting visitors and their products they're buying. I think I covered all 3 questions today.
Thank you. You've covered them perfectly. Thank you, Thomas. We'll come back actually to you again, but let me now switch from the private sector to our colleagues from the universities. And let me start maybe with Dr. Weishan Chen. One of your areas of expertise is designing urban infrastructure and integrating more principles of circular economy to make cities not only smarter, but also sustainable. Can you summarize what are the common challenges that global cities face and which cities demonstrate the best examples of integrating such principles, especially from the perspective of food waste management?
Okay, Armin, that's quite a difficult question to select one of the best. Because I don't work in all cities, so I could maybe name 1 or 2 in Europe. But first, to answer your first question, then I think the common challenges, if from the municipality point of view or from city point of view, then is how to have a systematic or a holistic approach for the entire value chain. because in many cities, different sections of the value chain are managed by different stakeholders. For example, the collection is operated by municipality, but then the treatment could be run by the private company, and the end user of these resources could be citizen again, like energy, or it could be farmer if they are recovering nutrient or compost. And it's very difficult to integrate all these. So I could maybe name 2 examples in Europe, because I'm more active in Europe. And so one example is, of course, Amsterdam. We are now also doing a lot in Amsterdam, but also in the city of Snake, that's in also in the Netherlands, that they put food waste together with wastewater and do a decentralized anaerobic digestion to produce energy carrier like methane and use it on site, and they can supply up to 25% of the heat demand of the local community. So that's helped the energy transition. And then another example could be the Helsingborg, that's in Scandinavia. So the city, what they do is they separate the food waste from the wastewater, and they use a vacuum and kitchen grinder to collect it on site, and they transform into a new type of fertilizer, and they are already putting into the field to experiment. So this demonstrate the whole value chain solutions that including also the reuse of the resources. So I think that's one of the challenges every city has to try to tackle.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very comprehensive answer. Professor William Chan, you have been engaged in a number of initiatives and lead projects in the areas of food security and green revolution. In this context, how efficient food waste management can contribute to the 30 by 30 goal of the government of Singapore? Because I think government has done a lot in order to promote production, but could you please tell us from the perspective of the waste management? I think your microphone is off.
Okay, thank you, Armin, for this very good question. In fact, when we look at the food production, we should not see as in isolation. We should see in the context of the entire food system, by which I define there's a primary production, processing technology, and nutrition. So I think the 3 elements are closely interconnected. So if we just, I just use the example of a kitchen water tap. If we on the water, we don't use the water, then it's never enough. Likewise, if we import food, we don't really maximize its utilization, generating a lot of food waste. Then no matter how much food we import into the country or we produce locally, it's never enough. Then the last one is the nutrition. If we produce food that the aging population will not appreciate, then it's contributing to the food waste. So I think if we, in the context of today's topic, food waste management, if we can reduce food loss and food waste, and by coming out with innovation that allows the nutrient recover from the food waste to be connected back to the food chain, we will not need so much food import. And just a simple number comparison, it was estimated by FAO that if we actually can reduce the food loss totally and remove food waste totally, which is quite difficult, but in this scenario, we do not actually need to increase primary production to actually address the population growth in the world, and there alone, there's probably lesser need for developing GM crops also. So food waste management is a critical component of the entire food system.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Colleagues, just to let you know that we have received several questions in the Q&A session. Some of them are particularly have the particular panelist on the questions. So if you have time, if you can find some minute to address them in the written form, please go ahead. Although in the end, I would try to summarize some of them and ask them to you. So my next question would go to Thomas. We know that usually technologies can be successful and scalable if they can produce enough cash flow, profits, returns on investments. Do you think your business model is commercially viable? And what would you recommend to other startups that work in the field? In particular, how to attract private sectors to adopt such solutions?
Very good question, Armin. I see you nodding, so I'm not muting. Thank you. I also saw the question, so after this intermezzo, I'm going to respond on the Q&A. Well, you asked if my business is viable, and the most honest answer I can give, I hope so, and it might be. And it's more or less to do with the fact that we present a forecasting algorithm to our clients. And the most valuable tip I want to give other startups is to validate everything you do with every step you take towards your product. Because what we find out, it's really noble to fight food waste, and there's really an urgency to it. But in the end, if you end up with the director of a big cater company, they are not investing in nobility, they are investing in better financial results. So in the end, somewhere in that business, there's somebody who makes a judgment pure financial based. So what I would like to say is talk with every role in each company and make your product as best possible for the wishes of each role in that company, which means it has to be financial investable, and it has to be a very good solutions towards food waste, and people have to work with it, etc., etc., etc. Takes a lot of time, therefore it doesn't sound really sexy, but in the end, well, I think that's the best way possible. And we are really proud of the fact that we have struggled with one client for almost 4 or 5 years. We managed to get a 3-year deal out of it, so that's hopefully a little bit of a good forecast for other startups in this scene.
Thank you, Thomas. This is really inspiring because, you know, I think when we look at the transformation of the business and more focus on the issues of the sustainability, on the stakeholder in general, engagement of the users, consumers, but also providing not only pure commercial value, but your contribution to environmental and social issues. We hope that businesses like yours and Reiner's would only grow. It would attract more entrepreneurs and startups in the field. So thank you for your very honest question, and we hope more people would join you. And maybe some of the attendants of our session today would consider to also start something similar after this session. So my next question would go to Professor William Chan. Food waste management can be seen from different perspectives: changing behavior of businesses and people, investing in food waste conversion technologies, and even use it to produce energy. What do you think? What would be the proper balance?
Oh, this is really a good question. I think instead of developing these innovations to recycle, upcycle food waste, the key part is to raise awareness among consumers to reduce the generation of food waste. So I think urban farming is one of the solutions because it shortens the distance between the primary production site and the consumers. So because it will be produced in the city, so that would reduce food loss. By developing innovations, like for example, what we have developed as a natural food preservative, which allow the extension of the shelf life of food produced, that will also help reduce food loss. The third one is what happened to the existing, what we have in hand, what we see as a food waste. Then there we have many different innovations. So you know, we have heard the conversion into compost, generation of energy. These are some of the innovations, but we also can actually look into easy innovations to upcycle the food waste, recover nutrients as I discussed, and then reconnect back with the food chain. So by doing so, we actually converge all the solutions in the reducing food waste. I think this will be a very critical component to lighten the government's budget in food import. and also raising awareness of in consumers, because we know that food waste is not just a problem in terms of burden for the government, but also cause a lot of environmental issues and so on. So I think only when the local population worldwide pay appropriate attention and develop enough novel innovation to reduce food waste, then we can really achieve food sustainability at the larger scale.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your perspective on that. And the next question would go to Dr. Wei Shan Chen. Actually, this is a short, but I'm sure it's a complex question. What is the impact of different diets, citizens' behaviors, cultures of the food, and how it's relevant to the food waste management? Because we know different cultures have their ways of the consumption, right, and their diets. Is there any difference? Is there something that we can learn from that?
Ooh, that's really a complex question to answer in a few minutes. Yeah, so I will try to shed some light on this. So in terms of a diet, then we do see that, well, if you have higher protein consumption, then you have more nitrogen in your food waste, or you have more nitrogen in your human excreta, then this causes actually quite some trouble for the treatment and prevention of this nitrogen leak into the water environment. And also in terms of diet, then when you eat more oily, so if you have more fat, then this also has some impact on the fermentation itself or anaerobic digestion, because this is not easy to degrade during that process. So we are now working actually on, based on FAO data, we are trying to simulate what are the food waste composition in different cities, and does that have an impact on treatment itself. In terms of behavior, then you can put this into a global perspective, because in some areas, citizens put more effort to separate waste. So for example, I know in some area in Asia, they could separate cooked and raw food waste. And in that case, the cooked waste has a lower risk because it has been cooked and pathogens has been killed. So you have more functions for this stream. And so this is also in terms of user behavior, if they are willing to invest in that to ease the use of technology for the streams. And the culture itself also it plays a big role. So for example, in many countries, they eat everything from the food, the peels, or from animals, then they eat also organs, but some countries they don't. So yeah, this is also another aspect that how to reduce or how to prevent or how to predict the food waste. So this is a very big topic, so I only thought shed some light. We could discuss further later on. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I think it was an excellent answer on this complex question. And my next question would go to Rainer. You've mentioned right in the beginning, you provided some information about what is your solution that you're providing on the market. But could you share with us more information about Insight? That's a seamless, smart food waste tracker, right? Why should businesses choose these solutions? What is their value?
Yes, thanks for that question, and most happy to share more about that. We've been working with chefs mostly from hotel chains for the last 3 years or so. And each time when I speak to a chef, I ask him, chef, why is it so difficult for you to reduce food waste in your property, in your kitchens? They often tell me that they care deeply about the food waste problem. They desperately want to reduce their food waste, but they often don't know how to go about doing so. And they often share with me that they lack visibility of the situation, of the food waste problem. They don't know how much they're throwing away. They don't know what they're throwing away. They don't know when this waste is being generated. And therefore, it makes it very hard for them to go about taking any concrete steps or actions, or to lay out any strategies to go about reducing their food waste. And it's from those insights, we have built our product, which we call Insight. It's our smart food waste tracker that's deployed in kitchens. It essentially is a device that tracks all food waste that is being generated in the kitchen. It uses sensors, and we have built our proprietary image recognition technology that's able to identify anything that goes into it And the real goal is for us to be able to tell a chef at a very granular level how much of each, say for example, dish from the buffet line has been thrown away after each service. And we believe that by tracking this data over a period of time, we can give the chefs actionable steps on how to go about reducing it. For example, we are able to tell the chefs, say, oh, chef, yesterday for your lunch service, you threw away 20% more salmon sashimi compared to the previous 7 days on average. Perhaps you would like to go and investigate why that is so. Now that's actionable, that's granularity, and on average, we help our hotel clients save anywhere between 30 to 40% of their food waste. And that translates into actual dollars and cents, up to 8% of their food costs. And so what is the value? It is simple. It is helping them save money. Even more so during this COVID-19 season, what our clients are starting to realize is that a solution like ours is all the more important for them. Because during this crisis period, neither they nor the planet can afford to be wasteful. And so really the best thing that their kitchens can be doing today during this recovery phase is to manage their food waste and to minimize their costs.
Thank you. Thank you for a very sharp answer on this question. And we obviously see the digital technologies also penetrating into this field, and obviously they can help us, at least at the restaurant level, where we see a lot of waste is taking place, to reduce waste and manage waste more efficiently. Thank you for providing details on that. I see we have several questions, but we have around, I think, 15 to 20 minutes to address them. But I want to have my final question to all participants, and maybe leave you a few sentences to say about what is your view about data collection in general. When you look at the entire supply chain and the value chain, we sometimes recognize that we're not that good in terms of even collecting data about food loss and food waste in particular. What do you think how blockchain-based supply chain management or traceability system can help us to at least collect more data and then have more targeted intervention to reduce waste? Or do you think that there is anything that blockchain can create as an added value, or there is nothing we can achieve with that? So maybe everyone can respond to that question, and I'll start by following my screen. I have Professor William Chan first.
This is actually a very good question. In fact, the solution is already around, that we talk about IoT, blockchain, technology. It's about a matter of transferring into the food space. So as a matter of fact, the NTU is working with the Singapore Food Agency and A-Star in developing this Singapore food story. One of them is actually the developing intelligent supply chain monitoring and also food fraud traceability. So we see a lot more IoT application in the food space in terms of tracking the food waste and the food loss. For both industry and consumers, I think the apps and all these data analytic can be easily adapted to at all levels. So I think in the future we will see a much better monitoring and understanding, following by the solution to address this problem. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Next on my screen is Rainer.
First thing I want to say is that I don't know too much about blockchain-based solutions in the food supply chain. I guess I can comment on the part about traceability. I think that's super important just because, again, similar to the concept of our solution, reducing anything or optimizing anything begins with measurement. If you don't know what's happening, how are you going to optimize it? And so what I see quite a bit in the traceability space is, I think, a lot of alerts and monitoring for early intervention. I think that, at least to my knowledge, that's it. Honestly, I don't claim to have a lot of knowledge in this space, but I think a lot of the solutions I'm seeing it's about really monitoring and early intervention. And I think there needs to be more, and I might be biased, right? But just more data collection, right? Because when you have more information about what's happening across the supply chain, then you can think about various efforts or pouring in different type of resources, or solutioning around specific areas where there can be opportunities. Tying back a little bit to what we do, we don't focus a lot on, say, consumer plate waste, right? We can collect data around that, but in our opinion, it's unavoidable, because it's unavoidable. We focus on things that the kitchen can control. So in the same way, I would like to believe in the food supply chain, there might be things that, seriously speaking, is unavoidable, but rather we get data to understand what is avoidable and then channel our efforts towards tackling those parts of the supply chain. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Rainer. Dr. Chen, you're the next on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, I like what Rainer just said. I also want to add to this point. So we are actually doing some data science on food waste in Amsterdam and also in China. And what we see is there are a lot of data on the quantity of the food waste or byproducts, but then there's no quality indicators involved. So very often what we end up is in a circular economy background, then we have a lot of stakeholders who like to use these wastes, and they see there's an economy of scale from such byproduct or food waste, but they don't know the quality, and they could not also trace the quality. So you also need logistics to bring this from the generation to the reuse. And so from this part, I would say blockchain is maybe a nice thing as data recording or optimization, but also we have to be aware what kind of data we are actually collecting and use, and would that really contribute to a circular economy. So this is all research we are doing now, like what are the parameters that stakeholders could easily measure, and then also could be a good indicator for the user who want to reuse these streams. So this is my answer, short answer to this.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Thomas, what is your take about blockchain and integrating blockchain into the food traceability, how it can really help us to trace the food waste, to better manage food waste?
Yes, from my point of view, with the companies I work with, blockchain is really far away, to be honest. We don't hear it a lot. So it's more or less what we think, and I really like that I'm next to the Wageningen expert, because we see a lot of small bubbles existing towards this supply chain of food, and we're at the end where a lot is wasted with chefs. And it sounds a bit weird, but we really believe that if you can change the system, I know how ambitious that sounds, but what we see is that chefs, they purchase or they order food and they get it. But what it might sound really weird, but we will really want to targeting a just-in-time principle, where not the chef is ordering the food, but where data can make triggers to the logistics services to provide food for the restaurants. And then Wageningen comes in, because I know that they are really targeting on the quality of food, on how good is the food, where it has been, and can we deliver it. It sounds maybe a bit weird, but I really think that's a really big step for sustainability, and by being more efficient. Because what I really hate to see, I live in Utrecht, it's the 4th city of the Netherlands, and every Tuesday around now, it's 10 a.m. in the morning, we see 5 to 6 trucks in the city center, half loaded, because every restaurant has ordered their own food, and with different suppliers, so they all target the same supplier in the end, or the same order. And it's really inefficient to see that, and they are all producing CO2, etc. And I think if we can connect all those chains together from an umbrella view, it can save us a lot of time, money, environment, etc. Maybe it's a bit far-fetched, but that's what we see in the end of the circuit, is that there are triggers to switch the ordering system, and therefore changing the way wishes and produce are going to flow in this product chain. Maybe a bit far-fetched, but that's my point of view on what blockchain can achieve in this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Actually, it's a really interesting perspective, and I think it also creates an opportunity for some people to think about it as a business opportunity as well, because the things that you've mentioned obviously creates gap that some businesses or startups or entrepreneur can feel. Colleagues, I've been screening through the questions, and there are many. Actually, we've discussed something about how to work with the restaurants, how to work with the businesses, what is the perspective of the universities and research centers. But we haven't touched upon a lot about specific tools in terms of the behavioral change at consumer level. Although some of you have mentioned, but we didn't have a chance to speak about specific things like nudges, what needs to be done. Is it something that requires carrots, or is it something that requires nudges? And from that perspective, maybe I would start with Dr. Shan. What is your perspective? What needs to be done to change that consumer behavior? Because as I see now, we have more digital and technological solutions, and it seems that technologies are more conscious about environment than do human. What is your take on that?
Are you referring to me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as I said, I work on this low-grade, really mixed food waste. So I could only speak from this perspective. But what we are assuming is that, for example, if we create a better way of collection, then a user could contribute to this collection of food waste better. So without mixing plastic, etc. So for example, that's why we choose for kitchen grinder. And we are even thinking of design kitchen grinder in a different way, that the user can really, in a very convenient way, just put this food waste into the grinder. And the grinder is also a bit hidden somewhere in the kitchen, for example. So you only see a small hole, you put it in, and then until a certain volume, then they start processing it. And also this can be when they are not home, because it creates some noise. So to do this, then we are now also preparing a project to really interact with the user on this. So we will create different way that they can use kitchen grinders, and also the different way of hiding kitchen grinders in the house and where they can use it. But this is not limited to kitchen grinder. Any similar alternatives can also be used, but indeed, to take this into consideration, that could help the whole chain to have a better quality from the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And Professor William Chen, a similar question to you. And I've noticed that in the question and answers, there is also some things that people are interested what they need to do in Singapore to reduce food waste. Is it something that, for example, we need to have a better recycling, or is it something that we need to have a better planning when we go to the supermarkets?
Well, I think Singapore is a unique place where we face this food waste problem. I think when we try to educate the consumers about the importance of reducing food waste, we ought to come up with a solution that they appreciate. For example, I use the example of plastic bag, single-use plastic bags. There are legislation around the world to say the ban that, but without coming up with an alternative solution, it's not easy to implement. So my take is that likewise for food waste, if we can come up with a solution in the case of plastic bags, if we can have developed equally cost-effective biodegradable plastic bag, that consumer will find it a lot easier to accept. Likewise for food waste, if we can develop some kind of novel food through this innovation, reconnect back into the food chain, then consumer would actually appreciate. I think policy has to come with a solution, not just policy alone. Yeah.
Rainer, what would be your take? You've mentioned actually in your interventions that you're really kind of providing information on better management of the waste, so people be careful in terms of the planning their supplies and managing them. Do you think that there is also potential in terms of the food waste conversion? Because in some cases anyway, you would have, even if you are the best planner, you probably have some waste. Is there any potential for food conversion technologies in your opinion?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am a firm believer that there needs to be different solutions that tackle the problem, the food waste problem, from different angles. As you rightly pointed out, we can have the best analytics. We can help chefs minimize their food waste as much as possible, but it's impossible to have zero waste, especially if you're running a buffet restaurant. For people in the audience who are from the F&B industry, from the hospitality industry, you're running a large commercial kitchens, you know that's impossible to have zero waste. Our job, my job, is to help them minimize as much as possible. And whatever cannot be minimized, we redistribute it if that's possible, although in Singapore it's a little bit challenging, or recycling it. So yeah, definitely I think there needs to be different solutions across the whole chain to tackle this problem holistically and effectively.
Thank you. And my question would go to Thomas. A little bit complex question, because I was trying to kind of take a different pieces of all questions that we received and basically ask, what is your take in terms of the roles of government, of society, and of the business? What would be kind of the roles in your perspective? Kind of having, you're in a business that you deal with the private sector, you also have to follow some regulations. What needs to be done by each stakeholder so we can achieve a better result in terms of the food waste management?
Do you want a short or a long answer? As a private entrepreneur, I'm subjective. So in case on how do I see each role? Well, what we see is that the hospitality sector does know best how to serve their consumers, but they were unable to reduce food waste for different kind of matters. So I think it's their responsibility to solve the problem, for the government to enhance investing in resolving the problem, and also by nudging or inform the consumer, because that's something the chef sees back, that if well, the thing is that we see a lot of chefs, they have consumers in their restaurant, and the general Dutch people find climate awareness, sustainability really important. That the moment guests have a menu, it's all gone. They will ask for the most spoiling dish possible for the environment, and that's a really struggle for chefs. And that's something we have to attack with each other. Entrepreneurs first, government to enhance, and the consumers to know their role from, okay, they know best and I'm getting informed for the better picture in the end. I think that's still a long answer, but that's I think that's it.
Yeah. It's an excellent answer, actually, and it's basically kind of a summing up this panel discussion. I just want to add that UNDP also, with its 170 70 offices all around the world, is trying to tackle these issues with other UN organizations, but obviously that ambitious objective of halving the food waste and loss is still ahead of us, and all of us at the private sector, at the academia, and in government should probably be more active, creative, investing more resources and energy in addressing this utmost important issue. Because as some of you have mentioned, we're facing the growing population and more urbanization is taking place, and therefore we need to be more effective in terms of not only producing and managing the supply chains, but also managing food waste and loss more efficiently. On this, I would like to ask my colleagues from SGInnovate to continue and maybe sum up this discussion. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Arman, for moderating an exciting panel discussion. We'd also like to thank our panelists, Raina, Dr. William Chen, Dr. Wei Shan Chen, as well as Thomas for joining us for today's session. For our attendees, please keep a lookout for our post-event EDM, which will include the event recording of this session, as well as the presentation slides that were shared by Dr. William Chen, as well as Dr. Wei Shan Chen. You can also write into us at events@sginnovate.com if you have any other questions. And please look forward to our other exciting deep tech events that can be found on our SGInnovate website. We will also appreciate it if you can fill up our feedback form after this session, which will be linked after you close the webinar. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you for other events. For the speakers, could we trouble everyone to stay on for a few minutes where my